We had been married for 15 years, but things had become monotonous, and we grew apart. We were living under the same roof, but in separate worlds. Different rooms, no longer partners, confidants, or lovers. She started leaving hints, and I finally took notice. I did some digging, and it turned out she had an affair, at least an emotional one. She had been complaining to me, but I had stopped listening to her long ago, dismissing her complaints and mockeries. But when I uncovered the truth, I stopped just hearing her. I really listened. She was unhappy with our marriage, and she had fallen out of love with me. I knew if I tried to convince her that she was wrong and that we could fix our marriage, she'd only distance herself even more. I could see it in her eyes. The gap between us was growing wider. So, I decided to let go of the idea of fixing things. I sat there, drinking my beer, replaying our last argument over and over in my mind, trying to figure out how to win her back. But every time I tried harder to get her back, she drifted further away. I spent late nights in the guest room, letting my wife sleep in our large family bed while I nursed my wounds. One night, something changed. As I reflected on our relationship, I had a sudden realization. Why was I arguing with her about her feelings? What she felt was real to her, and I had been dismissing it. I realized how foolish I had been, trying to tell her that her feelings weren't valid. From that moment on, I stopped arguing with her. But what about me? As I sat there in the dark, it hit me. I wasn't happy either. I wasn't in love with her anymore. I was in love with the idea of our marriage and the life we used to have, but that wasn't our reality anymore. This epiphany shook me, and I knew I had to make a change. I spent time reflecting, and eventually, I came up with a plan. It didn't matter if it worked or not. I knew that what we were doing wasn't working, and I couldn't keep doing the same thing expecting different results. So, I smiled, tossed the empty beer bottles into the trash, and made the decision to sleep in the guest room. This was part of the plan. But just as I was about to settle in, my wife, Becky, opened the door and flicked on the light, interrupting my peace. "Why are you sleeping in the guest room?" Becky asked as she walked into the room. I squinted against the bright light, my eyes adjusting. "I stayed up late and didn't want to disturb you," I replied. She looked at me for a moment before heading to the kitchen to make herself coffee. I wasn't a coffee drinker. Thankfully, I could wake up alert and ready to go. After jumping into the shower, I prepared for the conversation ahead, feeling oddly light on my feet. When I walked into the living room, Becky was sitting across from me, visibly agitated, her fists clenched. I sat down on the couch in my usual spot, watching her closely. "Timothy," she began, her voice shaky, "this isn't working. I feel disappointed, lost, and I don't think I love you anymore." I sat still, letting her words hang in the air. She took a deep breath and continued, "I know we've been together a long time, but I think we need to get a divorce." The word divorce lingered, and I couldn't help but smile as she nervously waited for my reaction. "That sounds good, dear," I said casually. She blinked in disbelief. "Timothy, did you hear me?" I nodded. "Yes, I heard you. You feel it's not working, you don't love me, and you want a divorce." "I agree." She seemed bewildered, her confusion evident as she searched my face for a reaction. "Do you understand now?" she asked. I stood up, walked over to her, and knelt down in front of her. "Becky, I can't change how you feel. If you don't love me, how can I argue with that? Can I tell you that you're wrong about your feelings? No. If you feel you can't live with me anymore, then how can I argue with that either?" Becky looked at me as if I had lost my mind. But in that moment, I saw the recognition in her eyes, an acknowledgement that I understood what she was feeling, and she appreciated it. "Wait," she said, her voice shaking. "You said you didn't love me?" I nodded. "There were times just like for you." She looked taken aback, as if this wasn't the scene she had imagined playing out. Her emotions were reflected in her expression, and I couldn't help but notice the shift. "Anything else?" I asked. "I need to leave tonight, so I'd like to settle this now, if you don't mind." "Are you leaving right now?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I stood up, putting on my jacket. "Yes, I'm leaving. I think I'll hit a few bars. Maybe I'll start looking for someone else instead of you." I waved goodbye to her and left, leaving her sitting in the chair, stunned and speechless. I stopped at the nearest bar, ordered a bourbon, and took a seat at a table away from the crowd. As I sipped my drink, I took out my phone and called Nancy, a coworker who was known as the office gossip. I played the part of the abandoned husband, telling her about the conversation I'd had with Becky, especially her shocking request for a divorce. I didn't tell her the full truth, of course. I was at the bar, drowning my sorrows in whiskey, and I might not show up for work the next day. I could hear the gears turning in Nancy's head. She and I had flirted a bit at work, and she was single. Before long, she invited herself out to join me, claiming she wanted to keep me company during this emotional time. I agreed and met her at a bar I knew my wife and her friends often visited. Was I concerned that someone might see me? No. My marriage was over, and neither Becky nor I had love left for each other. Nancy showed up quickly, dressed to impress, maybe hoping to get to me before anyone else could. That's what I like to believe, at least. But when she saw me, she was surprised to find my body language and mood didn't match the gravity of the news I'd shared with her. My smile didn't help either. "Timothy, what's happening?" she asked, sitting beside me, confused. I raised my hand and pointed to my ring finger, which was now bare. "She wants a divorce. That's how she feels. Why should I fight it?" I waved down the waiter and ordered another drink. Nancy ordered her usual Cosmo as she sat down. "Timothy, over the phone, you seemed more upset," she said. I took a deep breath. "We've been unhappy for a while," I replied. "I finally realized that maybe I don't love her like I used to. She wants this divorce, so I'm not going to fight it. If she wants to leave, fine. I'm not going to lie around feeling forgotten and unloved." Nancy took a big sip of her drink and set it down, watching me. I could tell my attitude was having an effect on her, though I wasn't sure if it was confusion or something else. "Maybe we should dance?" I said without waiting for her to answer, grabbing her hand and leading her to the dance floor. She looked up at me. "Timothy, what are you planning to do?" I pulled her closer, enjoying the closeness. "I'm going to give her everything she thinks she wants. I'm going to do whatever I want right now. And right now, I want to dance with you. In fact, I've wanted to dance with you for a long time." She smiled, looking into my eyes. "If you're trying to get back at her." I raised an eyebrow. "Maybe," I replied, as she pressed her body against mine, comfortable and warm. "I'm okay with that," she said with a sigh, and we lost track of time. It felt good not to worry about calling home to tell Becky when I'd be back. Nancy was fun, intelligent, and we flirted all evening. She was completely mine, and she knew it. I knew it, but I didn't take her home with me. It was enough to know that someone wanted me. Becky had bruised my ego, but Nancy had built it back up. In fact, I'd say Nancy was more attractive than Becky. We kissed in the parking lot by her car. I opened the door for her and smiled. "See you tomorrow at work." She nodded, understanding that I wasn't looking for anything serious right now. I made it clear that I just needed some fun, and that's all I was offering. Nancy understood that. By the end of tomorrow, I was sure all the women in the office would know about it. I'd like to tell you that I'm a calm man, but the truth is, I was already looking forward to rubbing this in Becky's face a little. When I walked in the door, Becky was already in bed. As soon as she heard me come in, she jumped up to meet me. "Where have you been?" she snapped. I hung up my coat in the closet and started undressing. "I went out," I said. "I told you I was leaving. Why should you care?" "Timothy, I was worried you might do something bad to yourself." I smiled. "Becky, I know how you feel. I'm fine. You want a divorce? I'll gladly give you one. I'm not going to force you to live with someone you don't love anymore." I grabbed my pillow and my clothes for the next morning, heading for the guest room. "Timothy," Becky called out, her voice hesitant. I stopped, shifting my things to the other hand. "What?" I asked. She looked down, unable to meet my eyes. "I don't understand. You don't have to sleep in another bed." I paused, deliberately not making it easy for her. "Are you suggesting that I move out of our bedroom?" Becky gasped, wiping away a tear. "No, I didn't mean that. I mean, you can share the bed with me, if you want to. If you don't want to, I guess I could move to another room." Her voice was shaky, unsure. She seemed nervous about the idea of me actually leaving the bedroom. I could see the fear in her face, unsure of what I might do next. I decided to spare her the agony. "Well, this bed is more comfortable. I'll stay here with you, if it's not too much trouble." Her face brightened. "Oh yes, that would be wonderful. I mean, it's no problem for me." "Then it's settled," I said, tossing my pillow back onto the bed. She opened her mouth, probably to talk, but I was too tired. "Let's just go to bed," I told her. By the following evening, for women at work had shown interest in me. One of my friends even gave me his sister's number. She was a widow, struggling to find someone. I set up dates for the coming week with all 4 women, including another one with Nancy. I intentionally kept this evening free because I needed to talk with Becky and sort things out. It was time to address the situation. When I got home, Becky was waiting for me. "Carol saw you last night at the bar," she said. "She said you were with a woman." "Who was that? What were you doing together?" "She said you two looked really comfortable." I could have exploded. I could have yelled at her. accused her of neglecting me, of distancing herself from me. But I didn't. I smiled and told her I'd answer her questions after I changed. She tried to push, but I ignored her and went to change into something more comfortable. When I came back downstairs, Becky was staring at me, her eyes filled with anger and tears. She was ready for a fight. It was Nancy from work, I said, not denying it. She probably expected me to make excuses, but I didn't. What were you doing together? She asked, her voice full of accusation. We were on a date, I replied calmly. On a date? She shrieked, and I nodded. Yes. You want a divorce, right? You told me you don't love me. So why shouldn't I look for love elsewhere? You don't love me anymore, so what reason do I have to stay here? She slumped into her chair, defeated. But what will people say? She asked, her voice quieter now. Carol's already gossiping about you dating some woman. I stood up, pacing. Don't you dare call Nancy a woman like that, I said. She's a lady, and I treated her as such. Last night, she went on a date with a married man. But I guess that's what you call a promiscuous woman. So what would you call a married woman who knowingly dates other men without her husband's knowledge? Becky was silent, her face a mix of panic and realization. What does that have to do with me? She exploded. I remained calm, my silence stretching between us. She finally saw it in my face. How much do you know? She asked, her voice trembling. Enough, I said sharply. Whether you slept with them or not, I really don't care anymore. This marriage was over the moment you checked out. I'm done. I'm moving on. I'm taking care of myself because I don't get any support from my wife at home. I went into the kitchen and made myself dinner. When I finished, I found Becky watching me. She hesitated for a moment before saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry too, I said, putting away the dishes. I've got plans for the rest of the week. Don't expect me home early. And if you prefer, I can sleep in the guest room. She didn't respond. Later, I went to bed in the guest room, leaving Becky to deal with her restless night. The next day, I met Kathy. She was a sweet, 35-year-old blonde, divorced with 2 kids. We had coffee and then did something silly, played laser tag, just the 2 of us against a team of 10 teenagers. They kept annihilating us, but we laughed, sitting and chatting between games. After one round, we both died in the game and lay side by side. I pulled her towards me and kissed her. She kissed me back, and after a nice dinner, I walked her back to her house. We kissed again before parting ways, and she made me promise to ask her out again soon. When I got home, I expected another confrontation with Becky, but when I walked in, she seemed different, subdued. Hello, she said quietly. I smiled and greeted her as I undressed after my date. You seem like you had a good time, she observed, trying to hide her emotions. I did, thanks for noticing, I replied. How was your evening? She asked. We talked for the first time in months, really listened to each other. She finally confessed. I've never slept with anyone else. I've kissed a few men, and I shared my feelings with Justin at work. He wanted more, but I wasn't ready. I looked at her and said, Becky, I'm sure we both share blame in this. Even though you didn't sleep with anyone, you still betrayed me. We were a team, and you checked out long ago. I respect that you didn't actually sleep with someone before asking for a divorce, but you've still hurt me. I should have listened to your feelings instead of arguing with them. She nodded, her face a mixture of regret and acceptance. We sat in silence for a while, both processing everything. Timothy, I'm feeling so confused right now. I'm not sure if I want a divorce. I smiled and replied, Let me know when you figure it out. I'm not kicking you out, and I'm not planning to leave anytime soon. I was already heading to the guest bedroom when she asked, Are you still going to see Nancy? Yes, I answered. I'm seeing her, and others too. Do what you need to do, figure it out. I need to do what's best for me. If we get a divorce, well, then it wasn't meant to be. I entered the guest bedroom, but she followed me, stopping in the doorway. Timothy, she said. I turned to see her standing there as I took off my shirt. Come back to bed, please, she begged. I hesitated. Do you think that's wise? Tears streamed down her face. I don't know. I just want you right now. I reached out to her, and she threw herself into my arms, sobbing. She was confused and didn't know how to feel. I carried her back to our bed, holding her as we fell asleep. Lauren was a good friend of mine. We often discussed the latest TV shows and fandom topics. We went to a bar with live music that evening, which she was excited about, but none of her friends or dates were interested in joining her. So, I took her with me. We had fun, but there was no romantic chemistry between us, just a solid friendship, which was enough for both of us. I got home early and parked in the driveway, only to see a car there. A brief pang of jealousy flared up, but I quickly calmed myself, reminding myself that whatever happens, happens. There's no point in worrying, right? I learned this technique from my psychiatrist during treatment for my fear of flying. Instead of thinking, "Oh God, I'm about to get on a plane," he helped me reframe it to, "Oh God, I'm about to get on a plane. I can't wait." It took some practice, but it generally worked in the short term. I repeated my mantra and opened the door, finding Becky sitting with Carol, one of her friends. "Timothy, I didn't expect you back so soon," Becky said. "Carol," I nodded at them. Carol gave me a cold stare but didn't speak. "Work finished early, so here I am," I said. "Do you need some privacy?" Becky and Carol exchanged glances, and Carol stood up. "I should get going." "Becky, I'll talk to you soon." Becky walked Carol to the door, and when she returned, she said, "Sorry for intruding. I didn't mean to interrupt your evening." I shrugged. "Don't be silly, Timothy. This is your home too." I paused, considering her words. "When was the last time either of us called this place our home?" "Have you eaten?" she asked. I poked at the leftovers from what she and Carol had apparently shared. "How are you?" I asked. She sat down. "I'm okay, I think." I invited Carol over to talk, but she only confused me more. "How so?" I asked. "She wanted me to kick you out, change the locks, and divorce you," Becky said. "Well, my key still works, so I guess you didn't have time to call the locksmith," I replied. She laughed softly. "Don't be silly. I had to explain to her that I was the one who asked for the divorce after I told you that. What rights do I have over you? I left you, right?" She looked intently at me, that last part more of a question, searching for an answer. I wanted to jump up and reassure her, to tell her that I still belonged to her, but I didn't. I stayed silent. In the past, my reassurances would have pushed her away, but maybe this more non-committal approach would have a different effect. Changing the subject, I blurted out, "I'm afraid I have some bad news. My date for tomorrow night canceled, so now I'm stuck with concert tickets. Maybe you'd like to go with me instead of another girl?" Her face brightened. "Oh, Timothy, I would love to. I mean, if you want." I shrugged. "Well, I could give these tickets to someone at work." "No," she said decisively, but then added, "I mean, I'd be happy to go with you." She blushed and nodded. "Are you sure?" I asked. "Yes," she whispered. I smiled. This could be fun. I informed Heather about the change in plans, and though she was disappointed, she understood. Such is life in the dating game. Becky was dressed and ready when I picked her up after work. She looked amazing, clearly dressed to impress. I couldn't help but think she might have chosen that outfit to catch my attention. I didn't know much about the band. Heather had recommended the concert, so I'd bought the tickets. They were good, loud but enjoyable. I wasn't surprised when we ran into Heather. I could see that Becky was caught off guard by how great Heather looked, and she quickly realized that Heather was supposed to be my date tonight. I apologized to Heather, introducing her to Becky. "Heather, this is Becky." "Becky, Heather," I said. Heather was supposed to be my date tonight, but something came up. Usually, when I introduced Becky, I referred to her as my wife, but this time, I decided not to. Becky noticed right away. "Nice to meet you, Heather," Becky said, looking her directly in the eyes. Something passed between the two women. Heather, being smart, quickly apologized and said she'd see me at work the next day. Becky, on the other hand, was seething. She grabbed my hand and asked, "Timothy, where's your wedding ring?" I shrugged. "At home. I took it off after you asked for a divorce. I don't need it anymore." Becky was at a loss for words. "Timothy, we aren't divorced yet." I smiled, focusing on the music. Several times, I went to the bar to refill our drinks. Each time, Becky kept a close watch on me. Every time I was at the bar, some woman would approach, and I'd chat with them. One even made me laugh and slipped me her number. Becky noticed but didn't say anything. I'm not usually the type to flirt, but after Becky asked for the divorce, I allowed myself to be more free. I discovered I had a rather blunt knack for flirting, and without the restraint I once had, I didn't need to hold back anymore. I'm not the handsomest guy around, but I've always had a good sense of humor, and it seemed that women appreciated it. For the first time in a while, I could feel Becky watching me, maybe even remembering how my humor and charm once captivated her heart. She stayed quiet the whole way home, and so did I. Once we were home and getting ready for bed, Becky asked again, "Timothy, where's your wedding ring?" I pointed to the sock drawer in the dresser. She walked over, opened it, and pulled out the gold ring. She stared at it for a moment, then looked at me, her eyes welling with tears. "It's yours now," I told her. "I think you should throw it away or sell it." She hesitated. "What should I do with it?" she asked quietly. Do whatever you want, I replied. That ring was a symbol of our love, our marriage. At one point, it was a shield, a warning that I was unavailable to others. I doubt most people even understand the meaning behind it. For me, this ring kept other women away. I hoped your ring would do the same for you, but ever since you chose not to live with me anymore, I no longer need it to protect me. It just reminds me of what used to be. I looked her straight in the eyes until she met my gaze. When the time comes, you'll decide what to do with it. I stepped closer to her and closed her fingers around the gold band. She held on to it quietly, accepting the responsibility. Thank you for the evening, she called out to me as I was drifting off to sleep. I really enjoyed the concert and spending time with you. Anytime, I muttered, before slipping back into sleep. The next morning, breakfast was ready. Becky had made eggs and bacon, and I appreciated her effort. But as I looked at her, I noticed she hadn't taken off her wedding and engagement rings. I also noticed Becky fidgeting with her wedding and engagement rings as we ate breakfast together that morning. Later, at work, Carol called me. Carol, I'm surprised to hear from you. What can I do for you? Lunch today at 12:30 at Bohemia, she said, before hanging up. I stared at the phone, unsure of what to expect. I didn't know Carol very well. She was one of Becky's friends from work, someone I didn't have much interaction with. Becky had always seemed to bond with her, but Carol had never been particularly friendly toward me. When I walked into the bar where I'd first met Nancy, I saw Carol sitting at a table with a white linen tablecloth. She waved at me, but her expression was tense and stern, signaling that this conversation would likely not be pleasant. As soon as I sat down and our orders were taken, Carol gave me a hard glare. What the hell are you doing? Becky is in agony, and you're dating other women right in front of her? For the first time in a while, I felt my face flush with a mix of embarrassment and anger. I quickly bit my tongue, realizing that anything I said or did here would probably get reported back to Becky. I took a moment to regain control of my emotions before responding. Carol, how much do you really know about what's going on with Becky? I asked. I know her husband is acting like a complete idiot, she growled. I glanced around, aware of the people watching us. Carol, stop talking nonsense. Answer my question honestly, and I'll answer yours. I have nothing to hide. Carol hesitated, then relaxed as the waiter brought our food. I sat back, waiting for her to continue. Becky's situation wasn't lost on Carol. Becky's confused, Carol admitted. So confused that she feels she needs to see other men to sort out her thoughts. She blushed, sipping her water. Becky's having a weak moment, Timothy, she added. Really? I asked, my voice thick with sarcasm. So now I'm the idiot? We've been trying to help her figure things out, Carol said. I leaned in, feeling the anger bubble up. This is where I take exception, Carol. Why is it you and your friends feel the need to help her sort out her marriage? Carol went silent. What business is it of yours? I asked. Becky is my friend, she said quietly. So what? I snapped. Shouldn't I be her best friend, her partner, her life companion? If she had problems, shouldn't she have come to me first? Instead, she goes to you, her friends, who decide it's a good idea to take her places where she can sort out her feelings with other men. Men who don't seem to care they're kissing another man's wife. Carol turned pale. She seemed to lose her appetite completely. I could feel my anger rising. Carol was just another foolish friend who felt the need to meddle in something she didn't understand. Let me ask you something, Carol, I said. Are you married? She shook her head. Have you ever been married? Another shake of her head. Do you have a degree in counseling? She was silent. Then what gives you the right to give advice about marriage? You've never been married. So how would you know what it's like? Carol gasped, taken aback. You think you can meddle in someone else's marriage? I asked. What makes you think you're qualified? I'm her friend, she muttered. From where I'm sitting, you don't know anything about me. How many times have you ever talked to me? Once or twice? I've been married to Becky for 15 years, but when have you ever made the effort to get to know me, to understand the man who's been her partner for all that time? You talk about helping her, but what the hell do you know about me other than what Becky's told you from her perspective? I could tell that Carol was on the verge of tears. I had made my point, and now I needed to get the message through to Becky via Carol. Carol, I said, my voice steady, Becky told me how she feels. She wants a divorce. She said, and I quote, I don't love you anymore. So, tell me, how am I supposed to respond to that? What argument can I make to convince her otherwise? She wants the divorce, and why should I be unhappy, hoping she'll change her mind? I finished my drink and noticed I hadn't eaten much of my food. I stood up, giving Carol one last look. I've realized that other women see something in me that Becky no longer does. She pushed me away. I didn't push her away. I'm not going to put my life on hold just because my partner is confused and no longer wants me. I'm trying to move on. How she feels about that is her business. I'm no longer trying to convince her or tell her how she should feel. I've accepted that. With those final words, I left before Carol could say anything more. I knew as soon as I walked out, she'd be on the phone with Becky. As I walked away, I had some thinking to do. That evening, I was meeting Sandra. Things went very well with Sandra. She was different from the others. She was a younger, very beautiful black woman, incredibly attractive. When she first joined our company, we were formal and polite. But a few months in, there was a moment when I was telling a rather spicy joke to some guys, and as I reached the punchline, Sandra walked into the room behind me. The men around me noticed her and held their breath. I turned to see her shocked expression and flashed her a mischievous smile. "Admit it, that's really funny," I said. She stood there for a moment, her face saying, "I can't believe this white guy just said that to me," before she burst out laughing along with me. From then on, she was one of the guys. By the end of our date, however, she was all woman. Sandra allowed me to go further than I had with other women, but when the moment came, I was the one to decline her offer to stay the night. As much as I wanted to, there were still issues with Becky that I needed to resolve before I could sleep with someone else. That night, as I settled into bed, Becky spoke up. "Timothy?" "Yes?" I answered, turning to face her. "Please take a shower." Her voice was trembling. "Why?" "It's dark," I said, confused. The light came on, and I saw her face, flushed and moist from crying. She couldn't meet my eyes. "Please, Timothy. If you don't take a shower, I'm going to have to ask you to sleep in the guest room." I was stunned. "What's happening?" "I can't stand the smell of her on you," she said, turning away from me. "You smell like her." It hit me then that she meant Sandra. I felt horrible. I hadn't even realized. "I'm sorry," I whispered, feeling the weight of her pain. "If you want me to go to the guest room, I can." "No," she sobbed. "I want you to come back to our bed, but only after you take a shower. I can't stand her scent on you. It's bad enough knowing you're seeing other women. I can pretend you're just out with the guys. I can ignore the rumors my friends tell me about who they've seen you with. But now, I can smell her on you. I can tell." I walked over to her side of the bed, kissed her forehead gently, and whispered, "I'm sorry. I was inconsiderate. Let me take a shower, and I'll come back to our bed." The next morning was Saturday, and I slept in. It had been a long week, going out every night, trying to juggle everything. I could feel my age, and I just hoped I wouldn't catch a cold or something. Becky woke me up with breakfast, and then asked me about my plans for the weekend. "I don't have anything planned," I told her, still sitting at the kitchen table. "Timothy," she said, her voice quiet. She reached into her pocket and pulled something out, then knelt down in front of me. She opened her hand, and I saw my wedding ring. Taking my hand, she looked up at me. "I want to work on our marriage. I think maybe I didn't think everything through," she said, carefully sliding the ring onto my finger. I didn't stop her. "I still love you," she whispered, staying kneeling as she waited for me to say something. Finally, I spoke. "Do you really feel that way?" I asked. She nodded, her eyes full of sincerity. "No divorce," she said, her voice firm. "What about other men?" I asked, unsure where this was going. "There's no one else but you," she answered, looking at me. "And then, the delicate part. You need to understand," I said. "I'll still occasionally see other women." Becky swallowed, and we sat there for a long time, our eyes meeting in silence. In that moment, I realized something about my wife. I was confident in how this would end. Finally, she nodded. "I suppose I shouldn't be surprised," she said softly. "I think I'm in love with you too." I grabbed her and kissed her, passionately. She kissed me back with equal fervor. It turned out that Becky had low self-esteem, something I hadn't fully recognized until now. Over the years, I had treated her well in some ways, but not enough. We had drifted apart, and my biggest mistake was not acknowledging her feelings. Every time she shared something with me, I argued. "Do you know how harmful that is? How arrogant it is to tell someone that their feelings aren't true." It built resentment and hostility over time, and eventually, she no longer valued what we had. Maybe that was my fault. Over time, we changed. Well, she changed. I didn't. Why would I want to go back to how things were? I guess she wanted me to, but we both knew we had changed. She understood now that if she chose to walk away, there were others ready to take her place. "Do you really have to see other people?" she asked, her voice small. "I'm not planning to see other men," I replied, giving her a reassuring smile. Yes, I will see others from time to time. You may be my wife, but remember, I'm your husband. I won't forget about you. She smiled and then said, take me to bed and show me what I've been missing. Show me what all these other women get from you. Do you think you have what I need? I teased. I'll just show you my love, she said with a playful smile, and maybe wear you out so much that you won't have energy for any other woman. I picked her up and carried her to the bedroom. We wasted no time, undressing each other with urgency, almost frantic with desire. Our passion exploded as I took her, and then she took me, and then she took me again. At some point, she realized from my stamina that I hadn't slept with any of the other women. After 15 years of marriage, she knew exactly what I could do in bed. For the rest of the day, she had a knowing smile, but I remained silent. What happened with my dates was something I didn't bring up, and neither did she. It was an episode in our lives best left in the past. From then on, I never asked her about the men she had kissed or spoken to. She now looked at me with a newfound reverence and respect. I never would have believed my plan would work, but in the end, it did, though not in the way I expected. It wasn't a perfect plan, and at first, I was just too stubborn to let her have the satisfaction of seeing her hurtful words destroy me. When I saw how she reacted to my seeing other women while she stayed at home, I pushed my plan further. I won her back by creating space between us. You want what you don't have, and you take for granted what you do have, are the words I now live by. By freeing both her and myself, we've become closer than we ever were before. As for seeing others, I haven't had to yet. The first sign that Becky is reverting to her old self will prompt my next date. I know this, and she knows this. Together, we're working to not just listen to each other, but to truly hear each other. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.